Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in a world where animals and people had magical abilities? You had to be super careful about your pets, and the animals at the zoo? My name is Onyx Hoofbeats, and I will be telling you the story of the elementals. Animals with the ability to control the Earth's elements: fire, water, air, and earth. When a junior volunteer named Luna Acefield joins up with the Elemental Sanctuary down her street in hopes of becoming an elemental keeper, things could not get more exciting. With me creating the story visual for you using Planet Zoo, you can relax and listen to the story. Cooing with Luna over baby baboons, riding on the backs of ostriches, and foraging a path to a destiny with power. I hope you will enjoy the story as much as I will writing it. I will be creating the Visitor Center Part 2 in this episode, and you'll find out more about the time element, and what its possibilities are. Enjoy! It turned out that Liam's notes had been partially included in the building of the visitor center, but not entirely. On the other side of the peafowl habitat was an open-air plaza that stretched out to both sides. When the two of them arrived from the peafowl shelter, several keepers and caretakers were already working on the less impressive version of the visitor center. A rough stone building was forming, as the elemental keepers raised and lowered the pieces into place using their abilities. Here, Jim handed them each a pair of gloves. You can work on tearing up that brickwork, Mr. Gateman, and Miss Acefield can work on assisting our Earthkeeper with her job of making plants and rocks. Luna slid the gloves on, grateful she didn't have to be obvious that she needed them. That was easier than I expected. The gloves hid her hand nicely, but Luna still knew that tattoo was there. Trying not to worry about it, she went towards a young lady, roughly her same age, who was kneeling on the hard cobbles of the plaza. This is Miss Juno, our Earthkeeper. Jim introduced them. This is Miss Acefield, our junior volunteer. The keeper smiled tightly, and Luna couldn't help noticing that she was really young. She was made a keeper just last year, Jim explained. She will be creating the earthy plants and admirable rock formations that will decorate our building. He pointed at Luna. We'll make sure she's comfortable, and has everything she needs. Miss Juno is new, so it takes a little more energy than for others to make her element work. She also needs to be calm and relaxed. Got it. Luna was kept busy for the next few minutes gathering things Miss Juno would need. A pillow from the storage house for her to sit on, a drink of water from the fountain in the temporary adult staff unit, and a cheeseburger sandwich. Watching the young woman work on the plants was fascinating, and Luna spent hours watching her whisper softly to the leaves as she brought them up through the empty air, and pulled out their growths with her fingers. It was like watching someone mold with clay in midair without even touching it. Then Miss Juno gathered up some earth between her hands and molded it with her fingers into giant solid rocks. All the granules clumped together into a pillar of stone about 6 to 7 feet long. Miss Juno held it in her palm with ease, as though it weighed no more than a drop of water. Come on, she said her first words in 4 hours, flashing Luna a shy smile. Let's go get these on the roof. The roof? Luna eyed the building before them. It wasn't very tall, and reminded Luna of a temple. The door was large but simple, with a parade of snakes strung together over the top, each representing the elemental colors: red for fire, yellow for air, blue for water and green for earth. The roof was constructed of metal and slate panels, but several workers were cautiously unscrewing the outer panels of the inner roof. Good thing you watched the previous video, right? It's confusing. Miss Juno put down the rock she was carrying, and called across to Jim. You ready for the greenery and structural support? Just give me a sec, and I'll help you. Jim dumped some chiseled rock shards into a trash can, and walked briskly over to them. Okay, now you'll want to project a bubble of protection around your plants, so I don't burn them. Luna stepped back a few steps, but she still heard his muttered words. This would be a lot easier if you could create your own travel magic. After some deep breaths, and advisory words from Jim, Miss Juno finally managed to create a shimmery green bubble around her plants. And up you go. Jim blew out through his hands like a flamethrower, making Luna yelp, as fire engulfed Miss Juno. Keep concentrating on your bubble. Jim shouted over the inferno. We don't want any dead plants on our hands. Then he slowly lifted his hands, pushing the hazy figure of Miss Juno up into the sky. Luna's mouth dropped open, as Jim lowered the flames, depositing a completely unharmed Miss Juno on the roof. Now duplicate the rocks in a symmetrical pattern around the middle slate tiles, so the workers can remove the last slate tiles. Jim called. Duplicate the stones? Luna watched as Miss Juno put down the first rock, melding it together with the slate roof tile with a green glass-like substance, and then commenced to make more, identical to the first. Then she soldered the new rocks round the roof according to a diagram held for her by the rude woman, Georgia. The more she watched the Earthkeeper work, the more Luna wished for an element of her own. Maybe someday. She traced a line of grout up the rocky wall beside her. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Miss Juno embedded her plants beautifully all around the terrariums inside, and electricians installed TVs and speakers on the walls. The plants flourished, nurtured by their keeper until the element popped off their leaves like fireworks. As it turned towards evening, the animals went into their tanks, and Luna laughed with delight over the tiny fiery tree frog and the majestic wind-puffing anaconda. The keepers seemed pleased with their work, and Luna was happy too. She had worked all day, carrying food and drink, running to and fro from the storage house with electrical hoses and refrigerators. Well, parts of the refrigerators anyway, and nailing letters into the far wall. At last, they all stood back to admire their work, and Luna blew her sweaty hair from her eyes. Children's Corner was written in block letters over the foliage and rocks at the back, and education devices and a measurement statue of a gorilla stood in the foreground. Together with the rock formation on the roof, it looked very exotic. Nice work, everyone, another keeper called, running his hands through his hair, water seeping out of his fingertips like they were the ends of snipped hoses. Maybe this will bring in the moolah. He must be the water keeper. Luna walked over to him casually. The underwater streams are very cleverly hidden. Can you show me how you did it? Ah, Miss Acefield wants a demo. He laughed loudly, flicking water over her. Although it was only May, things got hot in California, and the water was refreshing. I'll have to show you some other time. Right now, I gotta get home to the missus. Name's Kennedy VO. He plugged the ends of his fingers. Always start leaking when I'm hot and tired. Me too, Luna laughed. Only virtually. Kennedy chuckled, as he headed towards the entrance. See you tomorrow, y'all. You too, Ken. Jim called. Good job today. The other keepers began to disperse, called good night, and went home. It made Luna get an almost lonely ache in her own heart. My family's far away tonight. Her family lived all the way down in Los Angeles, which wasn't as far as her cousins, who lived in Nevada, but still too far to visit on a whim. She looked around, and noticed that the sanctuary was closing. Guests were meandering out through the portcullis, talking and laughing in the early evening air. Luna took in a deep breath of the breeze, and pulled off her work gloves. She half hoped that the tattoo would be gone when she took them off, but no such miracle. She tilted her palm to catch the light, and wondered what it meant. I have to find Liam, but it's too late now. However, the idea of going out to grab a bite to eat and then returning home to her rough bed in the rookie house, where Liam would probably already be asleep, did not appeal to her very much. Instead, she headed for the telephone booth just inside the wall, deciding to call her parents. She was no more than halfway there, when she heard footsteps behind her. Hey, Luna, wait. She turned around to find Liam rapidly closing the distance between them. Oh, she said, a little too happily. I was just wondering where you were. You were? He stopped beside her, looking around at the empty sanctuary. You shouldn't be out here by yourself. He took her by the arm without waiting for an answer, and began leading her towards the staff houses. Is it really that dangerous out here? Luna asked, half teasing. Liam looked at her seriously. For you, yes. He opened the third door down on the wall, revealing a tiny room. Although the rocky rooms had been expanded, they were still very small and sharing one was tough. Luna hadn't minded as much as she thought she would. It's not like we're sleeping in the same bed. So? She plopped down on her hard cot. What's the deal? Liam sank down on his own cot, and removed a notebook from underneath it. Great, you're going to show me more of your notes, so I can draw on them again. Luna was playing the fool, partly because she didn't know what to say if they just sat together in the dark, trying to go to sleep. Liam chuckled, lightening Luna's unease a bit. No, this is my Revelations notebook. Luna sat down gently beside him, feeling very self-conscious that it was only the two of them awake. She knew this, because she had overheard Jim telling the other keepers earlier that day that she and Liam were the only two junior volunteers. Also known as the only two people in this sanctuary right now with no element, and apparently there's people out to get me. Since I'm not good at organizing my thoughts and realizations with my voice, I wrote down the things I know about you. So you can tell me what the time element means? Luna asked. Yes, and no. Liam tapped the first item on the list with his pencil. The time element is a very old element from ancient times. He read from the paper. Some say it was used to mess up history at critical turning points, because some things are still so uncertain. He looked up. Words of a scientist, apparently. Luna cocked her head. This is all very cool, but what does it do? Liam opened his backpack again, this time removing another notebook, with elements of our world scrawled on the cover. Luna read briefly over his shoulder as he flipped rapidly through the pages. Fire can be used through hands, mouth, or chest. Earth. Used by hands only, although a few people can use it with their body build, whatever that means. Aha! Liam cut her off, and laid the notepad out flat. The time element was written in what was apparently supposed to be fancy script, but it looked more like a drunken sailor had written it on a really bad day for his stomach. I'm assuming you wrote all these inscriptions? She asked, but Liam had already started reading. The time element is the oldest known element, with the ability to control the flow of time. It was very dangerous and only a select few knew about it. Specifically the ones who had it. The flow of time? Luna felt chills run down her back. What does that mean? Exactly what it sounds like. Liam sounded grim, but also a little excited. He continued reading. Although the power was thought difficult to use, the keepers used their power easily, messing with the world's balance and making the elemental animals frustrated. The element can turn time forwards, backwards, sideways, and can twist a person's mind into redoing things over and over without even realizing it, and even slowing down time, or fast-forwarding. They can even replay scenes from your life before your eyes. Liam had scribbled a gasping, scared face next to this last sentence, which he quickly covered with his hand. Not before Luna saw it though, and it made her even more worried. How does it work? She asked, trying to stay calm. It's not guaranteed I'm a time element person. Liam flipped through his pages, his brow furrowing. I didn't say, although you can see I was kinda obsessed with it for a while. He turned to a page filled with drawings of infinity signs, sand timers, and animals with black fur and purple eyes. Luna rested her finger on the relatively good face of a cougar or jaguar, staring at her from the paper. The time element animals. Liam nodded, running his hand along the infinity sign again. I read that if you see an infinity sign on a keeper, then animals of that element will start turning up at the sanctuary. Luna froze with her finger still on the jaguar. I'm not a keeper. Yet. Luna looked up into his eyes, fear and confusion starting to well in her heart. What happened to them? The other time element keepers? She asked, almost desperately. Liam shrugged slightly. I don't know. Then why are there no time element keepers here? Did they all vanish to their own secret society? Luna rubbed vigorously at the infinity sign on her palm. Is there any way we can find out? Liam narrowed his eyes, thinking hard. Well, I don't have any more information, but I know where we can find some.